are in the early phase of a mass extinction, and the major cause is our food system. So I am here to pose a question. Can a radically better food system protect biodiversity, improve our health, and combat climate change? But let me take a moment first to tell you a little bit about my background and how I became drawn to this topic. I grew up on the foothills of the Front Range in Colorado. And from an early age, I loved the steep slopes, the meadowlarks, the wildflowers, and the vast skies of this landscape. And I spent many hours walking with my dog over meadows, into gullies, and along old railroad tracks. And yet I knew that there were things missing from this landscape. I should also have seen pronghorn antelope, elk, rattlesnakes, wolves, bears, or at least signs of them. But they had been either hunted out or poisoned out or displaced by expanding towns and ranches. And this was my first awareness of the modern biodiversity crisis. And I resolved then that I would become an advocate in part of my life for the plants, animals, and landscapes that we share this planet with. And this commitment led me to study Earth history and biology in college and graduate school. And then an exciting opportunity for field work led me into paleontology, the study of ancient life. Now, together, the fossil record and Earth history go by the phrase deep time. And it turns out that deep time has some important lessons for us today. Now, I study the fossil record of mammals in relation to environmental change, and this scene here is one of my field areas in northern Pakistan. So we paleontologists know a lot about the environmental circumstances that cause species numbers to rise or to fall and allow ecosystems to remain diverse and stable for millions of years and then unravel very quickly. And one of the lessons from deep time that's important for us now is that the present time, dominated by human activities, is highly unusual. As I said earlier, we are in the early phase of a mass extinction. Now, paleontologists use that phrase, mass extinction, to refer to the episode when more than 50% of the world's species on land and in the oceans disappear in a geologically brief time period. And there have been only 5 of these in all of Earth history, and we are now on the threshold of the 6th. And the data here show that 1,000 species have become extinct in the wild or extinct altogether since the year 1500. And that rate is 1,000 times higher than the background rate in the fossil record. And the whole cause of that is our food system. Well, that realization led me to move to a farm more than 30 years ago. This is where I live now. There's a late spring view of me working in my garden with sandhill cranes and a draft horse in the background. And the farm has then been a place to learn new ideas and actually realize the effort it takes to grow some of one's own food and also coexist with native biodiversity. And I've met many of my animal neighbors. Here are several other scenes from the farm, a winter view of one of the pastures, corn, beans, and squash growing in my garden, and these tracks on the ice show some of the animal neighbors that we live with. And there's not a day that goes by now when I don't eat something that we've grown there, whether it's from eggs to pickles. And this is also a place to try out ideas and also a daily reminder of the challenges and opportunities in the food system. Well, what is a food system? A food system refers to everything from the choices of the crops or animals that we choose to grow, how they're grown or raised, how they're harvested and processed, how they're taken to market, how they're sold, who buys them, what the prices are, how they're consumed, and then potentially waste at the end, and the entire political economy of all of that. So it's everything from ecosystem to eater to economy. So back to our topic. Our current food system is taking us toward disaster. However, major structural changes could actually turn it into a profoundly positive one. And beyond the material benefits of this transformation, it would also mean a pivot in our relationship with the natural world from exploiter to collaborator. So I would like to tell you about my ideas about a transformed, radiant food system. But first, let me take you briefly through 5 dimensions of the disaster version. Only 4% of the world's terrestrial mammal biomass is now in wild mammals. Most of it is in livestock, like cows, goats, and sheep. And a substantial fraction is human biomass. So together, humans and livestock have appropriated the resources that once largely supported wild animals. Most of the world's habitable land area, or I should say almost half of the world's habitable land area, is now occupied by agricultural activities. And most of that land area in agriculture goes to raise livestock or food for livestock, even though livestock provide only 17% of global calories. And industrial methods, which involve patented seeds of low genetic diversity, agrochemicals for synthetic fertilizers and pesticides, as well as heavy equipment, and then growing crops in monocultures, one at a time, of low genetic diversity over vast areas. This system dominates global food production, even though most of what's grown on these lands is food for livestock or for biofuel. Very little of it is actually for direct human consumption. Now, and most animals in livestock animals now are raised in confinement, like this dairy farm in central Michigan. And all of this has led to elevated rates of continuing extinction of plants and animals, both in and out of agricultural lands. And finally, 1/3 of greenhouse gases that are emitted today are associated with agricultural activities. And this includes carbon dioxide associated with land clearing, methane associated with ruminant livestock and rice paddies, and nitrous oxide from manure management. Well, it doesn't have to be this way. However, many farmers are trapped in the industrial food system, even if they'd like to make a change. So let me take you to see this farm, which is in the southwest part of our county, where I went with my class a few years ago. This is a small confinement dairy farm near Manchester, and we'd had a good tour of the cow barns, of the milking parlor, of the silage that the farmer uses to feed the cattle and so forth, and we're standing around asking final questions. And one of the students says to the farmer, have you ever thought of shifting to organic methods? And this pained look comes over his face, and he says, I am more than $1 million in debt. I cannot possibly consider any fundamental changes now. Well, that answer stunned us, and it made us realize how vividly farmers can be trapped in the industrial system, even if they would like to make a change. Well, as I said, it doesn't have to be this way. We know how to do better. So now I want to take you to a farm with a different story. This is a small organic farm north of Ann Arbor, where the farmer on 3 acres grows salad greens and microgreens. And we had a tour there, and we did a little field experiment. We're standing around asking final questions. And one of the groups says, have you ever figured out how much you actually grow in terms of weight per year on this farm? In other words, how much biomass is coming off? He said, well, actually, I did have somebody weigh up everything we grew and harvested last year. And the answer was 27 tons. Well, that answer stunned us. 27 tons of salad greens on 3 acres. So by the end of the day, we were asking ourselves, if Rob can grow 27 tons of salad greens on 3 acres, wouldn't it be possible for organic agriculture to feed the world? And a few of us got together after the term was over and decided we would tackle that question. So we looked up lots and lots of data from the literature, did some number crunching, and lo and behold, the answer is yes. In principle, it could. And this made us realize that a radically different food system is possible. So now I would like to give you a vision of the transformed radiant food system. And why a vision? Well, a vision enables us to see important features of the system that we would like to have come into being, and then we can figure out how to get there. So bear with me. The year is 2040. The Secretary of Agriculture has an advanced degree in agricultural ecology, and her steering of a progressive farm bill has now enabled new farmers to purchase land under the stipulation that what they grow is primarily for human consumption. Her support for organic methods, like what happens on my neighbor's farm in the western part of our county, where you can see that there's no monoculture here. There are many different kinds of crops grown in a single field, and none of the synthetic chemicals are used here. So now organic agriculture is occupying 25% of US farmland. In addition, the removal of subsidies for industrial methods and the promotion of organic methods means that now, instead of synthetic nitrogen fertilizers, which use natural gas as a feedstock and make us the industrial system very reliant on fossil fuels, are replaced by green plants that are nitrogen-fixing cover crops. In addition, the US public has reduced its consumption of animal products, especially red meat, by 50%, which is in line with the MyPlate recommendations from all public health scholars, not only across the country, but across the world. In addition, the land that once went to grow livestock feed has now become pasture. So livestock animals can now all be raised in natural conditions on pasture, like these pigs and chickens here. The expansion of diversified organic farms across the landscape means that there are now habitats for native pollinators, birds, amphibians, and mammals. And 1 million bird boxes on American farmlands have now largely controlled insect pests and led to a huge reduction in pesticides. All farm workers receive a living wage in this new system. Those that are currently left behind in the current system now have influence and they make a decent living. And so this version of the food system is actually a facilitator of biodiversity conservation and is actively drawing greenhouse gases out of the atmosphere and into soils and trees. So a further win is that the changes in dietary habits have led to a reduction in the incidence of obesity, heart disease, and stroke. So now we need to think about how we actually get there from here, and where can all of us come in as agents of change? Well, the first thing is to recognize the fully interlinked nature of the climate, biodiversity, food system crisis. And also to realize we have the scientific knowledge and the examples in practice to make this transition if we decide to put our resources and determination there. And in addition, of course, environmental justice and social justice are critical to this system because it benefits producers, consumers, and it enables stability and equity in a radiant system. So how can we hasten this transition? Well, we each have leverage in what we choose to eat, where we buy our food, whom we elect to office, and what social movements we support. And so I want to mention several ways in which we can actually hasten this transition. Crises lie ahead, and some of them will provide opportunities for the radiant system to achieve prominence. And one of the major ways those crises will occur involve climate change. So, for example, climate change is already causing longer growing seasons, warmer growing seasons, and longer drought periods. And this is actually causing yield losses and may eventually lead to serious food shortages. But organic methods actually do better during drought years than conventional methods because they hold higher soil moisture. And in this experiment here, shown from the Rodale Institute in Pennsylvania, you see organic corn being grown on the left, conventional on the right, same climate, same soils. During a drought year, you can see easily which form of production is doing better. So purchasing organically grown foods will actually support this transition. And the climate crises will become more extreme and may lead to total crop failures and death by heat stress of industrially raised livestock animals, unfortunately. And so, as a consequence, it will be important for the public and policymakers to prioritize food for people rather than food for livestock over farmland. And this will facilitate the transition for animals to be raised on pasture rather than fed from feed that is dominating our farmland under industrial methods. So purchasing grass-fed or pasture-raised dairy products and meat products, which are already widely available, will also support this transition. Fewer livestock animals on the landscape means fewer conflicts with native carnivores, like wolves and mountain lions. These animals have been demonized for decades in the United States, mainly because of conflicts with ranchers. So making a point of eating more plant-based meals will actually enable the greater coexistence with our native carnivores. Now, this is also going to lead to an increase in the price of food because more sustainable methods involve greater labor. But that will also mean that that more farm workers and farmers are lifted out of poverty and can actually earn a decent wage. And finally, an increase in diversified farms across the landscape will incentivize more people to live in rural communities. So purchasing food that is grown from or sold in farmers markets and farm market stores like Argus Farm Stop in Ann Arbor or Agricole here in Chelsea, where I live, is actually also supporting this transition. Now, all of these changes are relevant to Michigan, which is a highly agricultural state, and poised to become more so as global warming causes more heat stress and droughts in the areas of the United States that have been major food-producing areas for far too long, for quite a long time, for 100 years. And of course, all of this also needs support from food policy at the federal and state levels, and here are some elements of a fair food policy, which is far from what we have now. And these will be things such as supporting farmers who are shifting from industrial to organic methods, or increasing the support, the funding for low-income consumers to purchase locally grown food, like the Double Up Food Bucks program, which began right here in Ann Arbor and is now national. And the winners in this transformation are going to be the general public, the American public, farm workers, the farm economy, and native biodiversity. And the losers are going to be the agribusinesses that sell patented seed and agrochemicals for commodity crops, as well as the major food retailers. These are large corporations that have dominated federal policy for far too long. Well, the year 2040 is less than 15 years from now. And the transformation that I've described is underway with more to come. The ways forward are clear. The beneficiaries are vast, and the momentum is growing, and sticking with the current system is leading us to further disaster. So this transformation from disaster to radiance helps us build a more just world, a world of improved relationships between ourselves and the natural world, between farmers and consumers, between rural and urban communities. The world is asking this of us now. The rewards and the benefits are personal, societal, and world-changing. Thank you very much.